Griselda on Netflix, the Colombian drug lord Baron Griselda Blanco. Am I right in thinking that you had connections to Griselda?
Unfortunately, yeah. When it was at that level, at the highest, there was a lot of danger points. Then I experienced smoking crack. I think the rock bottom for me would be going to prison. By going to prison, as weak as it made me, I would not be double the woman I am today. Started working for Clean Break, going in and doing plays. My probation officer was in there and he just started crying. When I go into a prison, I confidently can let someone know that the only way you won't change when you leave prison is if you don't want to. Because everybody deserves a chance. Second, third, fourth. Who says 7 times fall, 7 times rise?
Welcome to School of Rock Bottom with Oliver Mason. I'm an actor, a voiceover artist and a recovery coach, and I've been in recovery for many years, and I know firsthand that rock bottom can be the greatest teacher and the springboard for a beautiful life. And as you know, I interview fellow creatives and all inspiring people that have hit rock bottom, survived and thrived. This is a podcast of hope and how to get out of the darkness and into the light and into the joy. And that's why I'm so delighted today, because I've got the joyous Jennifer Joseph in the studio. How are you, Jen?
I'm all right, thank you. Nice to be here.
It's so nice to have you. I really appreciate you coming down.
Appreciate the invite.
Before we get into our first question, I'm just going to give the listeners and viewers just a quick bio. I'm sure you all know Jen, but just in case. So Jennifer Joseph has been a Clean Break theatre company member since 2010, recently performing here by Deborah Bruce at the House of Lords. Other stage credits include for Lydia Lloyd's Shakespeare trilogy for the Donmar Warehouse, Paradise at the National Theatre, and Inside Bitch at the Royal Court. Cool title. TV and film include Topboy, My Mad Fat Diary, Honey Trap, Riches, and You Used to Be Famous. As a potent potential, definitely not potential, she's the real deal. As a potent advocate for arts in prison, she takes part in outreach programs about penal issues and is an ambassador for women in prison. Jen is currently working on developing her new theatre company called Nubian Cohorts and is working towards its first complete showing sometime this year. Wow.
Thank you.
Jen, I've obviously got you on here today because you're an incredible creative and actress, but also you've had quite a severe rock bottom, and I think there's been more than one. We're going to start there, and then from that we're going to pan out and we're going to get into the joy and the hope and the recovery and all the good stuff.
I think the rock bottom for me would be going to prison. It's been a living nightmare of my own that I never thought I'd experience, and I actually did. And I went to prison on the back of being caught at the airport importing marijuana, and I was with my children. So that for me is what made it rock bottom, because no parent wants to put their kids through that kind of experience, being stopped, being held, then getting told, oh, mummy will be home soon, like crying. It was just a mess. Yeah. That was my ultimate rock bottom, but I've had a few.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Obviously, sort of going into your story off air and before, I mean, you started as an accountant, I believe, right?
Well, I actually started as a sales assistant on the shop floor, and then I was encouraged and went for a different position in the offices, the accounts office in a department store, and on the back of that they put me through the training to be a qualified an accountant and to work in their department. So yeah, that was a great life experience.
How did you get from being an accountant to go into prison? What's that journey like? Because that's one heck of a journey.
It definitely is. It definitely is. To be fair, it wasn't a planned journey. It was one that took me by surprise, to be fair. And it was in the pursuit of love and attention. And I took it to a level where opening up my heart and my soul and embracing another human being that actually didn't mean me any good. And that created for me a real hostile relationship of being held against my own will with my children, and then being encouraged and forced into a life of importating drugs, to be fair. And obviously not being on it or not wanting to do things like that, I obviously got caught, because I can only suggest that my nerves and my whole persona gave me away, which is fine with me, because I wouldn't be where I am today.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing the journey that you've gone on from sort of where your career is now and you know, your whole kind of lifestyle now compared to sort of back then. It's absolutely colossal and immense, really. Obviously, you share as much around this as you feel comfortable. Mm-hmm. But how long were you? I think you just used the word important drugs for. How much of your life was that?
Wow, that probably from like the age of 16.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, right up until the point of going to jail, which was, I think I was like 39.
Wow.
Something like that, yeah. And I remember my brother coming to see me in prison, and he said to me, "Sis, are you really going to spend your 40th in jail?" And I looked at him and I thought, well, it's not my plan, bruv. You know what I mean? To be fair, but it seems like I will, yeah. Which was quite daunting. But, you know, when you go through life and life experiences, you have to encounter certain things in order for that part of your life to stop and for you to then evolve into other areas of life, more meaningful parts of life. And I know it sounds weird, but prison was a real stopgap for me. It helped me to become double the woman I once was.
Wow, that's a big statement, and it's so true as well. I know that your journey when you were, you know, importing drugs and things like that, I think it even took you to places like Cuba, didn't it? And Panama.
Panama.
I mean, I don't know if you're comfortable talking about this on air or not, but I've just finished watching Griselda on Netflix, which is about the Colombian drug lord Baron Griselda Blanco, and I was absolutely hooked to it. If you guys haven't seen it, go watch it. It's on Netflix. It's brilliant. And also she's in the Cocaine Godmother, which is another.
Yeah.
Am I right in thinking that you, during that period, had connections to Griselda?
Unfortunately, yeah. I had the misfortune of meeting her. Not because anything bad happened, but seeing what her life is now and all what surrounds her, it was, at the time, you didn't expect it to be like that, and you didn't realize how big it was or how scary she is as a person with her life and her personality. Do you know what I mean? So for me, it was an inadvertent introduction that left me stranded, for want of a better words, because while I was in Panama, I was with another lady. And for life of me, I can't remember her name, but it'll come back to me when I finish this. And I happened to meet her, and an incident took place, which they tried to put me into to make me fail. And I was that gullible in that time that I actually fell for it. And it put me in a horrible predicament with my brother. And they left me stranded in Panama, and I basically had to find my own way out. And even that itself was a journey, and a scary one at that.
Wow. Yeah. It sounds like you could have potentially lost your life a few times back in those days.
More than a few. More than a few. It's when you live in a certain kind of life, you find yourself caught up in circumstances that when you go away and sit down and think about, you literally have to say, whoa, like, thank you, God. for not making it worse than it was. And in other times, it makes you cry because the realization of the impact of that situation, and you just realize, oh my God, that could have been my life. And that can bring a very tearful moment of remembrance.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of the listeners and viewers who are joining us at this moment, there'll be a lot that kind of will understand that lifestyle, and maybe even, the profession itself of drug dealing and importation and stuff. I mean, 16, you're still a child, really, aren't you? What was it about? You mentioned love and there being a man and that being part of it. But for someone that doesn't understand this kind of lifestyle or profession, like, how did you make that choice at 16? What do you think the causes and conditions were that made you go, right, this is what I'm going to do?
Well, that's the point. I didn't make that choice.
Right.
That choice was technically made for me because everyone around me was so much older and everyone around me were men. And so it put me in a predicament where, it was fed to me like it was something great, something fantastic. And if you do this, obviously you'll have me and we'll be involved and I'll take care of you and I'll protect you. And it's just a gullible situation that you're swallowed up into when you're being told it.
Yeah.
On the outside, in hindsight, what a joke. Do you know what I mean? Nobody can have my destiny in control like I can. But at the time, you don't realize that. And at 16, some of us think we know it all already, even though your parents tell you don't know anything yet. You've not experienced nothing. Oh, you're joking. You don't know what I've been doing. You don't know what I've up to. I've experienced life. And really, it's just a start. Yeah. It's just a pin start of where your life could go, end up where you are, what you become.
And we know that environment a lot of the times plays even a bigger role than genetics and all kinds of different things. I sort of get the impression at 16 that you were kind of surrounded by this lifestyle. Have I got that right?
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Right.
I'm the youngest of 8.
Yeah.
And I've got 6 brothers and 1 sister. So for me, my home life with my mother, she was a single parent, was fine, was as best as she could make it.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot that she could always do. We were a poor family, but my mum did her best and we didn't help as children for the things that we wanted. So at that early age, it enabled me to start looking for myself. If I couldn't have it through my mum, then maybe I can get it through my own deeds and my own tries and my own conduct. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what I did. I was led into a life where I could help myself, and I did. Yeah.
There's a famous quote in The Godfather 3. Now, I know this is a film and this is your real life, but it's sort of a stereotype of that life, I suppose, and I want to know if it's true. I think Al Pacino turns around and he says, as soon as I think I'm out, they pull me back in. There's a sort of sense looking from the outside that when you're, living that life, that you can't just walk away. But once you're in it and you're doing it, you kind of, are you stuck in it to an extent?
I think that entirely depends on the kind of person you are. Right. The kind of person I am, I took my destiny into my own hands, and ending up in prison enabled me to walk away because nobody wants to work with tainted. And that's what I was. I was known to the police. I was under the radar. I wasn't under the radar anymore. I was in the radar. So all of that surrounded me before became nervous. So they didn't want to be surrounded with someone that was known. So that helped me to take my own destiny back. The only thing is it didn't keep them completely away. Because even whilst turning my life into what it is today, I'd be still getting phone calls, whether it's here, overseas, Canada, America, Cuba, England, You still get them phone calls of people trying to draw you back into a spectacle of a lifestyle.
Wow, that sounds incredibly challenging.
And it has to be up to you and how you feel about it, because it's a situation that you can easily get drawn back into.
Yeah.
The money, the lifestyle, it's all exciting. It's an adrenaline rush, but once you're over it, you're over it. That wasn't the adrenaline rush for me anymore. It was getting a job or being on stage and things like that. I swapped that for that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Got it. I mean, I think it's incredible. I mean, the flip. I mean, we'll go into this into, more detail in a little bit. But I know, you do a lot of work in prisons, for example, and you're an ambassador, and that's a huge change.
Yeah.
I think there's another struggle that maybe, you've not talked about much, and we haven't delved into today. But I think you were using narcotics as well, weren't you?
Yeah.
Yourself.
Yeah.
But you don't use them anymore.
No.
So that's something I got the sense off there that you can be dismissive of that slightly, but I think that is a massive round of applause to you, because
I appreciate that.
Just briefly, could you kind of take the listeners and viewers on that journey of what you were using and how long it's been since you've been using, because that's going to really, I think, inspire people that are maybe in that trap at the moment.
It started off because in the era when I started, everybody was doing it. And I'm talking about sitting in clubs and smoking a coke-laced spliff sort of thing.
Yeah.
It was the norm. You'd
Right.
sit at the bar, you do it. Everybody was doing it. And when it started to become a taboo, it started to become less. Club owners weren't allowing you to come in with it. They didn't want it in there to be associated with it. So it became behind closed doors.
Yeah.
And, everything I was around was doing it. So I then eat friends, family. So then I experienced smoking crack. And it was an experience that took me on a journey for 10, 15 years.
Wow.
And that's only because I was generating it. And once I was generating it, no one had to know, because I didn't have to go out and buy it, and I didn't have to go out and score, and I didn't have to do any of the things that are normally associated with that sort of addiction and that lifestyle. So therefore I could keep it behind closed doors and do it with the people that needed to know, which was the friends that you think are your friends at that time, because you're all doing it and no one's judging you. And that includes partners as well. So, yeah. But,
Wow.
like every good or bad thing, it has to come to an end. And I chose in that time to end it without the knowledge of knowing about meetings, rooms, NA, CA, and all the A's that you can get now.
Yeah.
I had to do it for myself, and it's the choice that I made. And like I said in the beginning, you make choices in life. You either can or you can't, or you do or you don't. And I chose to do it, and then I chose to not. And I didn't have the help. What's available to me now is really interesting, but for the grace of God, I managed to pull myself out of that situation.
Wow. I mean, there's so many things and layers there that I want to go back and pick up on, because there's a lot of detail there. I mean, first of all, wow, because not many people are able to quit crack cocaine on their own with willpower. So a massive, huge clap to you, because that is not an easy thing to do. The other thing is, I didn't realize you said generating it. So this is probably a naive question. You were making it as well. Is that right?
That had an element of involvement. It was more the generating of having it imported.
I see. Right.
You know what I mean? And then because I was on that level of it, I wouldn't be the one distributing it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
So you got pretty high up the chain by the sound of it.
I really did. I really did.
Yeah.
I really did. Not by choice.
Yeah.
It happened organically without me even realizing what was happening.
Yeah.
And when it was at that level, at the highest, there was a lot of danger points that I just realized I'm just a woman on my own. what the hell am I doing? How am I in this situation? Do you know what I mean? And again, you know, obviously the higher power had a different plan for me, because here I sit today.
Absolutely.
And you say, you know, kudos to me for coming off and being on the other side of it. But it was really the life choices that were made for me. Getting pregnant, having a child, having little or no money, and then realising my life is so different. What do I do here? I can either go and spend what little I had got on crack cocaine, or I can go to Ravel's, if anyone remembers that shoe shop in Wharf Road, and buy my daughter a pair of £80 boots. I chose to go and get my daughter the £80 boots, the boots that I then tied onto my shoe stand. That was a forever reminder for me of how I step back.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. It's minor, but it's a very effective.
That's incredible. So that's like a permanent reminder of
Yeah.
the choice you made and the
still
sort of
got
commitment
those
you made.
boots, yeah.
That's amazing.
And my daughter now, who those boots belong to, she's like 32, 4 daughters, you know what I mean?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting because, you know, there's a lot of talk about, you know, if you're in active addiction, about, you know, can you really, really function? Is there such a thing as a functioning addict or an alcoholic? You know, there's a big debate about that.
No. I say yeah.
I get the impression that you were, right?
I was a very functioning addict. Yes, I was.
I mean, to be, you know, using crack for that period of time, I mean, the sort of stereotype around if you take crack, which, you know, is what you see and what I've experienced with friends that are in recovery from that, is that it really pulls you into the madness, and it's just like so obvious that you're using after a period of time. But it sounds like to you, you've got sort of an incredible tolerance or constitution to it, and you were able to sort of carry on about your business.
Yeah, I think it was more because I've always been a big girl. And to be fair, when I first started, and it was in a spliff, first given to me, and it was in a spliff, and the more I was doing it, I realised it was suppressing an appetite. And then I'd look in the mirror and I thought, oh, I look slimmer, I look smaller. That for me became the encouragement to do it.
Right.
But didn't realise that I was a shadow of my former self. I didn't just lose weight. I looked at a picture one day of me. I was in Jamaica, and we was at an eating venue place on the roadside, and I'd had my arm on the back of the chair, and I looked at this picture, and I suddenly thought, "Rah, where's my arm? That wasn't me." And it actually scared me to know that actually that's what I looked like, as opposed to what I thought I looked like looking in the mirror.
Right.
So I felt like I had an incentive, I had an excuse, and it's an excuse I worked with for many years, but
yeah,
it's just an excuse, isn't it? You know what I mean? It's not factual.
Yeah, which we've all done, me included. You know, justify reasons for.
Yeah.
It sounds almost torturous that you would put down crack and then sort of be surrounded by it but not using that. Did you have to like fight the urge every day, or was it easier than that for you?
No, definitely not easier. In the beginning, it is hard. In the beginning, you don't even want to put yourself in that vulnerable position. But then you realise it's either you're going to be running from it from the rest of your life, or you've got to be strong and stand up and face it.
Yeah.
It's like a giant that you have to knock down and overcome in order to go forward and be around that situation and not fear it. And that's what I had to do, because no matter how much I stepped away from it, the situation was still around me. The same people, the same environment, and everything that goes with it. So I had to choose to be a giant over it more than it over me.
Got you. I think, you know, it would be quite easy to kind of listen to this podcast and just kind of go, all right, it's all down to willpower. And I think that has played a huge part. But, you know, you mentioned about the grace of God and higher power. So it sounds like from your perspective, you've not done it on your own, that there's been other forces at play.
Yeah.
And secondly, something you said off air. I mean, anyone who listens to the podcast knows that I keep banging on about purpose and this idea of ikigai, which is the Japanese term for purpose. And it sounds very much like you go into prison, coming out, joining Clean Break Theatre Company, that you're kind of that thing, you know, in recovery we call it the ism, you know, the ism. Yeah. It went somewhere else. You made different choices, but your passion and your drive that kind of went into your previous career, which we've just talked about, you then threw completely into, you know, family. Well, that was always part of your purpose anyway. And finding that buzz from theatre, you talked about that earlier on. Just talk us through that quickly, sort of the change that occurred in, I'm guessing, in prison, and then the change that maybe happened after.
Okay, let's take it to the beginning of this career thing.
Yeah.
In prison, I knew nothing about Clean Break. Absolutely nothing. I went through on a wing and a hope. I used to also work in the Houses of Commons for a good many years. And
hold up. You worked in the House of Commons. During which period of your life was this? This is brilliant. This is like an exclusive, ladies and gentlemen, right here.
Yeah, this is what we're talking in the 90s, 90 something, 90s. No, I don't know. Even before that, actually, early 90s kind of thing. And I don't even know if it was that late, to be fair. Anyway, I worked in there for a number. I used to be contracted to the opening of Parliament, the red carpet, cherry picking, and all things like that.
So that was like your side hustle.
Well, that was my main hustle.
Right. Okay. Right.
Because you had to have an exceptionally clean record to be able to work in the House of Parliament.
Yeah. Sure.
Full stop. So it was a time before anything bad for me. Do you know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
And I met a really good friend in there, and she was into the arts and that, but I was just having a good time. I was working amongst police. I was meeting MPs. You know, it was fascinating to me. I was going to Christmas parties. I was getting like bottles of wine. I even had a small relationship with Glenda Jackson.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, before she died, because she came out one day and she said, "You got a lighter?" She had fags, no lights, so I give her a lighter. And then that Christmas, she brought me like loads of fags and loads of lighters. Wow. Do you know what I mean? So, and that was a nice experience. Anyway, so for some reason, the young lady I used to work with in there, her name's Lara, and you know, she always said to me, "You're going to end up in prison, you are." And I'm like, right, why would you say that to someone? Anyway, we're all having a laugh. I took it on the chin. Bants, isn't it? That's what they call it now, isn't it? You get me? Anyway, I left the House of Parliament and I saw her like, it might have been a year or a bit later. And she said to me, "Oh my God, what happened to you? Where was you in prison?" I was with my niece at the time. And me and my niece sort of looked at each other, looked back at her, and she went, "No, you wasn't." I said, "Yes, I was."
Wow.
She went, "Oh my God." And anyway, we took it there. So I've always, because she does directing, I always say to her, you know, "Get me in a play, bring me on stage." And she goes, "Look, Jen, I work with professional actors. So if you're serious about it, go and do something about it and then come back." Whatever. So that same day, she said to me, "I know a place, it's called Clean Break. I worked with them before, you know, go there, introduce yourself. If you get in there, they allow you to act." She went, "You're not going to do it, are you?" I went, "No." She went, "Oh my God," because I was just lazy. I was on the back of coming out of prison, didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was in a real slump. In my culture, they say it's one thing, once a man, twice a child. I had come out being that child again, you know. I was breaking down on road with my daughter. She had to bring me home. I couldn't be in Brixton, a place that I grew up in, you know what I mean? So anyway.
Sorry to interrupt you. And at that point, you decided you weren't going to go back to that life.
No. That wasn't for me. That prison thing, that was enough for me.
Got you.
I see people go in and out of prison. That one experience, even if they didn't put me in prison and they just took me to the police station where they did, Uxbridge, that was enough for me. It just went on to experience the rest of it. I didn't need it in my life. Didn't want it. For me, clean slate all the way.
Yeah.
So she went away. We left each other. Me and my niece walked off laughing. I got a phone call. She said, I found them. This is their number. I've already called them, so they're expecting your call. I started to cry straight away because Lara did that for me. Without her input and her helping hand, I would never have made this start to the journey.
Yeah.
And because she went that far to call them up, get me the number, do the research to know they still exist, I made my first appointment. I hadn't been on the underground for 17 years because I'm claustrophobic.
Right, okay.
And I had an experience on there when I was pregnant at one point, so I made up my mind, never going to do that again. But I had to get on it to get to clean break.
Right.
And it was the best choice of a train journey I had made in 17 years. I went into clean break and I met 2 jackies on that day. And I was a mess. I'm not going to lie. It was, I couldn't believe that was me. So strong, so resilient, I'm the mum, the dad, everything, you know, I'm single woman, growing my children, strong as an ox. But in this time, in this period of my life, I'm the weakest I've ever been, I've ever experienced. And I was sitting in clean break, sobbing on tag, just to make that clear.
Right, okay.
And
they knew where you were at.
Yeah.
Right, okay. She's in the theatre company. Oh, okay, she should be all right.
And the 2 jackies were the best thing that happened to me. And one of the young ladies that was in the access course before myself as the last access course in clean break, Michelle, she come over, she goes, are you all right? And I said to her, not really, I'm really nervous. And she goes, look, don't be scared. To be here, you're in the right place. Make the most of it. It'll be good for you. And that was the start of my journey.
That's amazing.
I never looked back. 2010 I started. By 2012 I was in the first Don Marsh Shakespeare play, which was what was it? Julius Caesar.
Yeah, you did a trilogy, didn't you? Shakespeare. I can't believe how long you were connected to that. I mean, that was a lot of work that lasted a long time.
Yeah.
And you know, like I said in your bio, I mean, you've worked at some of the best, you know, places in the country.
Yeah.
You know, Donmar Warehouse, National Theatre, the Royal Court, just to name a few there. So your career really took off.
Because I went to jail.
Wow.
I know it sounds mad and people are sitting there thinking, is she dumb? What's she talking about? But if I didn't get that experience in my life by going to prison, as weak as it made me, as broken as it broke me, I would not be double again the woman I am today.
That's powerful. I mean, that's School of Rock Bottom in a nutshell. I mean, that really is. It's incredible, isn't it? You know, we all have our kind of breaking point that kind of like cracks something that then puts us on a different path.
But this journey, I mean, it's all well and good, and I'm ever grateful for the experiences of life, but it's had its knocks as well. Do you know what I mean? I've walked away in this industry again broken. And so
I tell you what, because this is really interesting. I'm going to ask you 2 questions now, okay. and I think they're going to kind of sum up really well what you're about to say. So it's a 2-pronged question. The first bit is, how would you compare the buzz of crack to the buzz of acting? That's going to be my first question.
Okay.
And the second one is, how would you compare the industry of drug dealing from before and the acting industry?
Okay.
Any similarities, any differences?
First part of your question.
Yeah.
Definitely more excitement in acting. There's no excitement in crack. It's an anxiety that comes with crack. Yeah. What comes with acting is anxiety fulfillment, the urge, the getting on stage, ever being nervous and thinking I can't do this, and then going on stage and doing it and breaking that barrier of I can't do this, I can't do this. You're on crack. Oh, I can do this. I shouldn't do this. I won't do this. I'm doing this. Do you see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And it's something that you shouldn't do, that you don't want to do. So there's no excitement in that. All that smoking crack will give you is piles, because you forever feel like you want to go to the toilet. Do you see what I'm saying?
For sure.
With the acting, it's nerve-wracking and it's scary, but what an elation of joy when you're in front of a camera or when you're in front of an audience and you perform and you bring a character and you make it believable. People walk away. I've done performances, especially with Clean Break, where people have come up to me and they go, I just saw my whole life there. Wow. Job done. Can't ask more than that. As far as your second question goes, it's about the bloody same.
Wow.
It's because
let's clip that. We're TikToking that bit right now.
Because it's gone from this savage world to an even savager world where you know, this world, like drug dealing and things like that will put you in prison, that would get you killed, that would do all of those things. Being in the industry of wanting to be an actor will make you depressed, kill you, make you lower than you've ever been before, you know, no excitement. And it's mind-blowing the way that the two worlds are not much different.
Wow. And is that because the buzz of acting is so powerful for you? I mean, that's how you just described it. You said it's a bigger buzz than crack.
No, it definitely is.
So there is a come down to that for you.
100%.
And so when you don't get it, I suppose with a drug, you can, well, like you said, you regenerate it.
Go back and carry on. If you don't get the job, you can't go and take the job, can you? You got to wait for the next job. And it's a part of the industry that no one has bothered to tell you about. That down part. Yeah, it's exciting when you get the job. Yeah, it's exciting. See yourself on TV. Yeah, it's exciting. Your family see you and they're proud of you. Yeah, it's exciting. But what about the 25 billion jobs that you've been going for and you've not got them?
Absolutely.
Then what do you do?
How do you cope with that now, sort of, as in today?
Today, with the help of a most fantastic agency that I am now with. Say?
No, you're fine. I'm just going to say, come a little closer on mic, just because I don't want anyone to miss what Jen's about to say. That's I don't want to give you instructions, Jen. I don't want to give you any instructions.
No, honestly, it's the greatness of my agency.
Yeah.
I had an agent before that, but to the experience that and the involvement that they are with me is very personal. I'd been for about, this is in the beginning, I'd been for about 12 adverts. Got none of them. And one day, my agent called me and said, "Are you all right?" I said, "Yeah." When your agent calls you, you're thinking, right, a job.
Yeah.
And she said, I said, "Everything all right?" She said, "Yeah. I just wanted to touch base with you to let you know that anything you don't get is nothing to do with you. It's about them, time and moment. I want you to know you're brilliant and just keep doing what you're doing. And anything we need to tell you, we will." I was left like this on the phone, like, rah. Like, "Luce, did you just call to tell me that?" And she said, "Yeah." I started crying. I said, "Thank you so much, Luce. That means the world to me. I can take the pressure off my back because it's wearing me down, and I can now go into this with a different frame of mind. Thank you." And she said, "Great. That's all I want to hear. Speak to you later." Put the phone down. Now, whereas I used to go into auditions and like 3 months down the line, I'm still waiting to hear back and waiting for that anticipation. Now I go into an audition, it's just an audition. Come out, if I hear, I hear. If I don't, I don't. I tell you what I've been lucky with. Regardless of getting a job or not, my agent always gets feedback.
That's nice, yeah.
And they like to tell them how brilliant I was because I pride myself on my job and the capability of doing it.
I tell you what really grabbed me about that whole thing that you just spoke about was we were talking a moment ago how you had a connection with Griselda Blanco, who, by all accounts, one of the most scariest female gangsters that's ever walked the planet. And that whole lifestyle, and we talked about how you could have potentially been killed on numerous occasions. Mm. And then we've got this other version of you that is getting emotional when your agent's ringing you up and saying it's not down to you. Doesn't that just highlight as actors how sort of vulnerable and sensitive we are? Because those two almost seem like a mismatch. It's like, yeah, there's this version of you that's hard as nails.
Because you have to be.
Right.
You have to build a shield of protection, and you can't be in such an industry, in such a world, without being able to hold your own. Mm. And I learned that by having an alter ego.
Is that something that you adopt as a performer, an alter ego?
Not even as a performer. It's about that lifestyle that you've had to. Being a woman in amongst many men that could potentially do whatever their heart's desire. You have to build a tough exterior. Can't be seen as a chump. Can't be taken for a DH, you know what I mean? I don't want to swear on your podcast.
No, I don't mind. It's okay.
Or you don't want to be taken for a dickhead. So you have to build that, and years of carrying such a strong exterior, and then being able to be soft and embrace something that is emotional to you is bloody refreshing, I tell you. Mm.
Yeah. Sounds like there was an element of acting always.
Right. Always. My alter ego is called Jake. It's a man, and it's had to be. Do you know what I mean? And I've always said anyway, to be a good actor, you have to be a good liar. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And my mum used to say, you know, a liar has to have a good memory.
Yeah, well, that's true. You got to remember all the lines you told them, don't you?
Yeah, and lines are my forte, trust me.
Yeah.
I'll be off script outside of a room by the time I get into a room, just for clarity, just to give it my best. Yeah. Talents I didn't know I had.
Got you.
Yeah.
If I was interviewing Jake right now, how would that go down?
Very different.
Okay.
Jake is a hard man.
Right.
Jake's had to be top, king, boss, general, governor. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And firm.
Right. I can see that for sure.
Yeah. Jake doesn't, even now my kids joke, and if something happens, they go, oh, do I see Jake? Do I see
Right.
And I have to let him know that I'm doing my best to put him to bed. Yeah. And if I don't need him, I don't want to generate him. And that's the world where I generated him. So if I'm not in that world no more, then I need to put him to rest. But trust me, being out on these streets can be trying.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah.
Does it blow people's minds that know you from before to now when they see you? Like people that know you from back in the day.
What you mean, them druggy days and importing days? I tell you why no, because they've all changed as well.
Really?
Thankfully.
Okay.
Some of them have got doctors behind their names now.
Wow.
Some of them run the biggest meetings, gatherings that I've ever seen happen.
Right.
You know what I mean? Some of them are in very high profile jobs right now. Do you know what I mean? So it's not strange to them to see me.
Right.
It's a relief to see us all and where we are now.
That's amazing to hear.
Yeah.
That's really, 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 really good to hear. Yeah. I think you just used the word top dog or something like that. And immediately I was drawn back to your CV again. I mean, I'm jealous of lots of these credits you've got. I suppose the one I'm really like fanboying on is Topboy. Because I love I just love Topboy. I think it's amazing. What was it like working on Topboy?
I did. You know what? Because we grew with it from the very first Top Boys in Summer House and things like that. And I had a humongous love for it, and I was auditioned for two different roles. The first role, because the problem I have in this industry as well is looking how I do. I'm 55 years old.
You're looking good.
And when I get parts of a 50 and a 60-year-old, I want to play them because I'm eligible for it. I'm allowed to because I'm 55. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they often get turned away. No, not getting it. So one of the parts that I auditioned for Topboy was for a much older woman, but I think she had cancer or something.
Right.
And as much as I did, because I just don't do a tape, I play up to a tape. Like if she's got cancer, I put on a headscarf so you can't see my hair, and I put myself in the predicament of what I think that situation should look like.
Right.
And didn't get her part, which is fair enough.
Okay.
And then I got the part that I feel like
sorry to interrupt, is that the part you're referring to? That's one of the main characters, right?
Yeah, that's one of the mums.
Yeah, one of the mums.
Yeah, that was in the meeting and talking about the rubbish and things like that.
Yeah. And
a lot of the time, the parts that I don't get, when we do see him, I couldn't have done that because I don't look like that. So that couldn't have worked for me. So I get it, you know what I mean? But what's happening to me at the minute is easily stereotypical. Do you know what I mean? So I can play a screw, a villain, a policeman, a social work, that kind of thing, which I don't mind. That's what I played in Topboy. I got that part, which was just as exciting because I was in the rooms with Ashley and the other guy, I've forgotten his name.
Kano?
No.
Okay.
No.
Right.
The guy that was in prison. Sorry, Bob, I forgot your name, but you're a big star and you're brilliant at what you've done. Yeah,
I forget all actors' names. I'm like Mel's my wife. She's enough to go. That's Tom Cruise. I'm like, I forgot. Like, so don't worry.
That was my friend Carrie. She could put it all on the line for me, and now she's not here. I'm stuck. You know what I mean? But, yeah, it's all good. But it was a great experience. More so because as well, my family, they grew up watching it, my kids, my nieces, my nephews, so it was a buzz for them to say, yo, that's my auntie, you know what I mean? And so making them proud was one of the things I strive for most, because when I first did Julius Caesar, just quickly, and we was all on the stage, and like got my kids in, and they were sitting at the front on the back, and he looking over. So when we all finished, we was bowing. I saw Lenny Henry, and I got starstruck, and they said to me, like, it's Lenny Henry, it's come to see you, chill out. I'm like, okay, you know what I mean? And then as we come off the stage, everyone was crying, thinking, "Bro, fuck, what have I missed?" Like I'm like, what's happening? Why are you crying? Jen, to see how proud your children were watching you. I thought, rah, that's why you're crying? I said, all right, sweet, job done. If you can see my children being proud, then I've achieved that goal, that ultimate life goal.
Well, they must be so proud. I mean, not only have you just completely turned your life around, you also go into prisons, you're an ambassador. I mean, people must really listen to you when you go into those women's prisons. Yeah,
they really do. And you know what was scary about that as well? And each time it happened, I'd done it 3 times, and I'd go in there and I'd big them up, let them know, there's life after prison. Don't hold yourselves back. Don't limit yourselves into anything you want to do once you get out. And then everyone we'd leave the prison, then everyone would fly off to New York, and I'd sit there and think, bruh. So I got myself this tattoo because I had to tell myself.
Yeah.
I didn't know who to turn to, so I had to put that on myself. My hope and my faith are the strongest things about me.
Yeah. So you're talking about work that you could have been involved with in the States, but because of criminal record, you couldn't go,
Couldn't go. And I think it's because my charge of the importation, that's a felony over there, isn't it? Not a misdemeanor. So I'm guessing they didn't want me to earn out of their economy as a felon, because their own felons can't. Do you know what I mean?
Gotcha, right.
But if I go for a holiday to spend money in their economy, they'll probably let me in.
I
haven't tried it yet, but I do plan to, because I do have a sister that lives in Miami.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
That's a nice place to visit.
Yeah.
It sounds like, you just described it really well just then, but I wonder if I could just go into a little bit more detail. So the main sort of message when you're going into these women's prisons is that, this isn't the end of your story.
It isn't. And I'll tell you a bigger story to that as well, since working with Clean Break. So in the early days, started working for Clean Break, going in and doing plays in front of probation, MPs, magistrates and things like that. And one of the jobs we went into and we did the performance, my probation officer was in there and he just started crying.
Wow.
And everyone was saying to him, like, well, why are you crying? It's just a play. He said, no, I know this woman. And to this woman that I see now, to the woman that came into my office back in 2008, 2009, I'm just so proud of the woman I see standing before me. And we sat together and we cried together. So that, to me, shows elevation in life. Do you know what I mean? So when I go into a prison, I confidently can let someone know that the only way you won't change or elevate or grow in the outside when you leave prison is if you don't want to. Oh. If you're going to let the beings of being in here and the heartbreak and the anxiety and the shame of being in here hold you back, then you'll never achieve. So allow yourself to achieve. And you allow yourself to achieve by forgiving yourself. Whatever you went there for, because let's face it, 99% of women are in prison because of a man. That's what I learned real quick,
right.
You know?
Wow.
Especially the young. You know what I mean? Because they're leading into this gang life and they're following these guys that are worthless, that have got no meaning to their future, but you have. But because they see that you have, they want to bring you down onto their level of lowness of where they're non-achievers. Do you see what I'm saying?
Wow.
So build your own self. Don't allow no one to build you. Have your faith, have your belief, and know that there's a higher power holding you and carrying you and allowing you to be.
Wow, that's amazing. I feel very inspired by that, hugely. You say the word forgiveness, and unfortunately we're going to have to end sort of soonish because we're nearly out of time. I pulled out an interview from The Guardian that you did a little while ago, and I'm going to, it's a quote that they've attributed to you. You can't always trust the papers. It says, "I can't forgive myself for putting children through what they experienced." Do you still feel the same way, that you haven't forgiven yourself in the context of what you just said to those women in prison?
No. No. The only reason I don't forgive myself, don't get it twisted, my kids tell me every day since the day it happened how much they forgive me. Mum, allow it, you're the best mum that we could have ever hoped for. You've done everything for us. You still do things for, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you see that self-hate of being that parent of protection, allowing my children to experience customs stopping them, putting them into a room and having your mum separate. I mean, I don't know about anyone else, but I don't know how you ever forgive yourself for that. Because if I could change that, I definitely would. But I can't. So I just have to live with it and move on. But forgiveness for myself, I've not achieved that.
Right. Is that something you'd like to be able to do?
Yeah.
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 Because I get the sense that it's slightly a self-preservation thing. You know, like that tough, strong character is definitely. I can feel it. The energy's there, and I don't know. There's something about your mindset that makes me think that maybe it's a protective thing. Maybe it's like, I'm scared if I forgive myself. What does that mean? Am I going to open a door to something?
Yeah.
And I really,
as long as I keep this little bit of horridness about myself, then I know that I will never put myself in a predicament for anything around me to be embarrassed or disrespected. Because remember, they've had to come to the prison to see me, be searched, all of that bullshit. Yeah.
But like you say, you were 16, you were coerced into it. You weren't, you weren't a full adult then. And I mean, I wish you so many things going forward. One of them, most definitely, is that you write a book, because you got to write a book. That is 100%. I'll be the first one to buy it. I wish you health, happiness, joy, love, and all those good things. I wish you incredibly well in your career. And sorry to be sort of emotional about this, but I really hope as well that you do forgive yourself, because I think you've earned it. I really, really, really do. And you keep talking about a higher power. And, my kind of perception of that is a forgiving one. And so I would argue that you've been forgiven by whatever that source is. So you just got to kind of get an agreement. Obviously that's your journey on that. Mm-hmm. And I got mad respect for you and for what you've shared today.
Thank you. I appreciate this.
This conversation is going to help a lot of people.
I hope so. I hope so, because it doesn't matter what you meet in your life. I mean, even as a new theatre company, Nubian Cohorts, even our first production, hopefully when people see it, they'll see the power behind belief and hope.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And that's the strongest message I would like to push out there right now, because everybody deserves a chance. Second, third, fourth. Who says 7 times fall, 7 times rise? It is what
Amen.
It is.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jen, for today. Really, really appreciate it. And Jen's mentioned her theatre company there. So if you head to the show notes now, you'll be able to find links to where you can follow Jen on social media and to her theatre company. And we'll discuss any other links that you might want to put up there. So go to the show notes. If you're listening to this or watching this on Spotify, please hit the follow button. Also, there's 3 little dots. You can go there and you can rate it. 5 stars would be great. If you're on YouTube, hit subscribe. And if you're on Apple, please hit subscribe or follow. That's my little sales pitch over. You'll be pleased to know. I always promise that I'll be back in 2 weeks. Every other Tuesday, there is a new episode. So we will definitely see you then. Jen, thanks again.
Thank you.
And to those at home or wherever you are watching or listening, I will see you in 2 weeks' time. Thank you.